Hey, listening squirrels, I know I look worse than a booger. I'm getting ready to wash this mop, though, so didn't bother with my face today. I'm so sorry. I just plumb forgot to read yesterday. I just forgot. Guess what? My SS check went in the bank. Woo! But they still are not taking taxes out. So I still have to fool with that. Anyway, Chapter 2 of The Moving Finger, a Miss Marple mystery from Agatha Christie. I'm not going to pretend that the arrival of our anonymous letter did not leave a nasty taste in my mouth. It did. At the same time, it soon passed out of my mind. I did not, you see, at that point take it seriously. Excuse me. I think I remembered saying to myself that these things probably happen fairly often in out-of-the-way villages. Some hysterical woman with a taste for dramatizing herself was probably at the bottom of it. Anyway, if the letters were as childish and silly as the one we got, they couldn't do much harm. The next incident, if I may put it so, occurred about a week later when Partridge, her lips set tightly together, informed me that Beatrice, the daily help, would not be coming today. I gather, sir, said Partridge, that the girl has been upset. I was not very sure what Partridge was implying, but I diagnosed, wrongly, some stomach trouble, to which Partridge was too delicate to allude more directly. I said I was sorry and hoped she would soon be better. The girl is perfectly well, sir, said Partridge. She is upset in her feelings. Oh, I said, rather doubtfully. Owing, went on Partridge, to a letter she has received, making, I understand, insinuations. The grimness of Partridge's eye, coupled with the obvious capital I, she's got capital letters here and there, like upset, capital letter. Capital I and insinuations made me apprehensive that the insinuations were concerned with me, since I would hardly have recognized Beatrice by sight if I met her in the town. So unaware of her had I been, I felt a not unnatural annoyance. An invalid hobbling about on 2 sticks is hardly cast for the role of deceiver of village girls. I said irritably, what nonsense. My very words, sir, to the girl's mother, said Partridge. Goings on in this house, I said to her, there never have been and never will be while I'm in charge. As to Beatrice, I said, girls are different nowadays, and as to goings on elsewhere, I can say nothing, but the truth is, sir, that Beatrice's friend from the garage, as she walks out with, got one of them nasty letters too, and he isn't acting reasonable at all. I've never heard anything so preposterous in my life, I said angrily. It's my opinion, sir, said Partridge, that we're well rid of the girl. What I say is, she wouldn't take on so if there wasn't something she didn't want found out. No smoke without fire, that's what I say. I had no idea how horribly tired I was going to get of that particular phrase. And that was part 1 of chapter 2. Part 2 is, that morning, by way of adventure, I was to walk down to the village, and in parentheses, Joanna and I always called it the village, although technically we were incorrect, and Limstock would have been annoyed to hear us. The sun was shining, the air was cool and crisp with the sweetness of spring in it. I assembled my sticks and started off, firmly refusing to permit Joanna to accompany me. No, I said, I will not have a guardian angel teetering along beside me and uttering encouraging chirrups. A man travels fastest who travels alone, remember? I have much business to transact. I shall go to Gilbraith, and Symington and sign that transfer of shares. I shall call in at the baker's and complain about the current loaf, and I shall return that book we borrowed. I have to go to the bank too. Let me away, woman. The morning is all too short. It was arranged that Joanna should pick me up with the car and drive me back up the hill in time for lunch. That ought to give you time to pass the time of day with everyone in Limstock. I have no doubt, I said, that I shall have seen anybody who is anybody by then. For morning in the high street was a kind of rendezvous for shoppers when news was exchanged. I did not, after all, walk down to the town unaccompanied. I had gone about 200 yards when I heard a bicycle bell behind me, and then a scrunching of brakes, and then Megan Hunter fell more or less. No. Then Megan Hunter more or less fell off her machine at my feet. "Hello," she said breathlessly as she rose and dusted herself off. I rather liked Megan and always felt oddly sorry for her. She was Symington, the lawyer's stepdaughter, Mrs. Symington's daughter by a first marriage. Nobody talked much about Mr. or Captain Hunter, and I gathered that he was considered best forgotten. He was reported to have treated Mrs. Symington very badly. She had divorced him a year or two after the marriage. She was a woman with means of her own and had settled down with her little daughter in Limstock to forget, and had eventually married the only eligible bachelor in the place, Richard Symington. There were 2 boys of the second marriage to whom their parents were devoted, and I fancy that Megan sometimes felt odd man out in the establishment. She certainly did not resemble her mother, who was a small, anemic woman, fadedly pretty, who talked in a thin, melancholy voice of servant difficulties and her health. Megan was a tall, awkward girl, and although she was actually 20, she looked more like a schoolgirlish 16. She had a shock of untidy brown hair, hazel green eyes, a thin, bony face, and an unexpected, charming, one-sided smile. Her clothes were drab and unattractive, and she usually had on lisle thread stockings with holes in them. She looked, I decided this morning, much more like a horse than a human being. In fact, she would have been a very nice horse with a little grooming. She spoke as usual in a kind of breathless rush. "I've been up to the farm, Lasher's, to see if they got any duck's eggs. They got an awfully nice lot of little pigs, sweet. Do you like little pigs? I even like the smell." "Well-kept pigs shouldn't smell," I said. "Shouldn't they? They all do around here. Are you walking down to town? I saw you were alone, so I thought I'd stop and walk with you, only I stopped rather suddenly." "You've torn your stocking," I said. Megan looked rather ruefully at her right leg. "So I have, but it's got 2 holes already, so it doesn't matter much, does it?" "Don't you ever mend your stockings, Megan?" "Rather, when Mummy catches me, but she doesn't notice awfully what I do, so it's lucky in a way, isn't it?" "You don't seem to realize you're grown up," I said. "You mean I ought to be more like your sister, all dolled up?" I rather resented this description of Joanna. "She looks clean and tidy and pleasing to the eye," I said. "She's awfully pretty," said Megan. "She isn't a bit like you, is she?" "Why not?" "Brothers and sisters aren't always alike." "No, of course. I'm not very like Brian or Colin. And Brian and Colin aren't like aren't like each other. She paused and said, "It's very rum, isn't it?" "What is?" "Families." I said thoughtfully, "I suppose they are." I wondered just what was passing in her mind. We walked on in silence for a moment or two. Then Megan said in a rather shy voice, "You fly, don't you?" "Yes." "That's how you got hurt?" "Yes, I crashed." Megan said, "Nobody down here flies." I said, "No, I suppose not. Would you like to fly, Megan?" "Me?" Megan seemed surprised. "Goodness, no. I should be sick. I'm sick in a train even." She paused and then asked, with that directness which only a child usually displays, Will you get all right and be able to fly again, or will you always be a bit of a crock?" Crock. A crock. "My doctor says I shall be quite all right." "Yes, but is he the kind of man who tells lies?" "I don't think so," I replied. "In fact, I'm quite sure of it. I trust him." "That's all right then, but a lot of people do tell lies." I accepted this undeniable statement of fact in silence. Megan said in a detached, judicial kind of way, "I'm glad. I was afraid you looked bad-tempered because you were crocked up for life. But if it's just natural, it's different." "I'm not bad-tempered," I said coldly. "Well, irritable then." "I'm irritable because I'm in a hurry and to get fit again, and these things can't be hurried." "Then why fuss?" I began to laugh. "My dear girl, aren't you ever in a hurry for things to happen?" Megan considered the question. She said, "No, why should I be? There's nothing to be in a hurry about. Nothing ever happens." I was struck by something forlorn in the words. I said gently, "What do you do with yourself down here?" She shrugged her shoulders. "What is there to do?" "Haven't you got any hobbies? Do you play games? Have you got friends?" "I'm stupid at games and don't like them much. There aren't many girls round here, and the ones there are I don't like. They think I'm awful." "Nonsense. Why should they?" Megan shook her head. "Didn't you go to school at all?" "Yes, I came back a year later." "Did you enjoy school?" "It wasn't bad. They taught you things in an awfully silly way, though." "How do you mean?" "Well, just bits and pieces, chopping and changing from one thing to the other. It was a cheap school, you know, and the teachers weren't very good. They could never answer questions properly." "Very few teachers can," I said. "Why not? They ought to." I agreed. "Of course, I'm pretty stupid," said Megan, "and such a lot of things seem to me such rot. History, for instance. Why, it's quite different out of different books." That is its real interest," I said. "And grammar," went on Megan, "and silly compositions, and all the blathering stuff Shelley wrote, twisting on about skylarks and Wordsworth going all potty over some silly daffodils. And Shakespeare." "What's wrong with Shakespeare?" I inquired with interest. "Twisting himself up to say things in such a difficult way you can't get at what he means. Still, I like some Shakespeare." "He would be gratified to know that, I'm sure," I said. Megan suspected no sarcasm. She said, her face lighting up, "I like Goneril and Reagan, for instance." "Why these two?" "Oh, I don't know. They're satisfactory somehow. Why do you think they were like that?" "Like what?" "Like they were, I mean. Something must have made him like that. For the first time I wondered, had I always accepted Lear's elder daughters as two nasty bits of goods and let it go at that? But Megan's demand for a first cause interested me. "I'll think about it," I said. "Oh, it doesn't really matter. I just wondered. Anyway, it's only English literature, isn't it?" Quite. Wasn't there any subject you enjoyed?" "Only maths." "Maths?" I said, rather surprised. You just say math. I can't hardly say it with an S on it. Megan's face had lit up. "I just love maths, but it wasn't awfully well taught. I'd like to be taught maths really well. It's heavenly. I think there's something heavenly about numbers anyway, don't you?" "I've never felt it." I've never felt it," I said truthfully. We were now entering the high street. Megan said sharply, "Here's Miss Griffith, hateful woman. Don't you like her? I loathe her. She's always at me to join her foul guides. I hate guides. Why dress yourself up and go about in clumps, and put badges on yourself for something you haven't really learned to do properly? I think it's all right." On the whole, I rather agreed with Megan, but Miss Griffith had descended on us before I could voice my assent. The doctor's sister, who rejoiced in the singularly inappropriate name of Amy, and it's spelled A-I-M-E, little slash over E, had all the positive assurance that her brother lacked. She was a handsome woman in a masculine, weather-beaten way with a deep, hearty voice. "Hello, you two," she baited us. "Gorgeous morning, isn't it? Megan, you're just the person I wanted to see. I want some help addressing envelopes for the Conservative Association." Megan muttered something elusive, propped up her bicycle against the curb, and dived in a purposeful way into the international stores. "Extraordinary child," said Miss Griffith, looking after her. "Bone lazy. Spends her time mooning about. Must be a great trial to poor Mrs. Symington. I know her mother's tried more than once to get her to take up something." Take up something. "Shorthand typing, you know, or cookery, or keeping Angora rabbits. She needs an interest in life." I thought that was probably true, but felt that in Megan's place I should have withstood firmly any of Amy Griffith's suggestions, for the simple reason that her aggressive personality would have put my back up. Her text drying me out. "I don't believe in idleness," went on Miss Griffith, "and certainly not for young people. It's not as though Megan was pretty or attractive or anything like that. Sometimes I think the girl's half-witted, a great disappointment to her mother. The father, you know," she lowered her voice slightly, "was definitely a wrong 'un. Afraid the child takes after him. Painful for her mother. Oh well. It takes all sorts to make a world, that's what I say." "Fortunately," I responded. Amy Griffith gave a jolly laugh. "Yes, it wouldn't do if we were all made to one pattern, but I don't like to see anyone not getting all they can out of life. I enjoy life myself and want everyone to enjoy it too." People say to me, "You must be bored to death living down there in the country all the year round." "Not a bit of it," I say. Sorry, throat. "Not a bit of it," I say, and I've lost my spot. Doggone. Here we go. "I'm always busy, always happy. There's always something going on in the country. My time's taken up, what with my guides and the Institute and various committees, to say nothing of looking after Owen." At this minute, Miss Griffith saw an acquaintance on the other side of the street, and uttering a bay of recognition, she leapt across the road, leaving me free to pursue my course to the bank. I always found Miss Griffith rather overwhelming, though I admired her energy and vitality, and it was a pleasure to see the beaming contentment with her lot in life which she always displayed, and which was a pleasant contrast to the subdued, complaining murmurs of so many women. My business at the bank transacted satisfactorily. I went on to the office of Messengers? MESSRS period. The Galbraith, and Symington. I don't know if there are any Galbraiths extant. I never saw any. I was shown into Richard Symington's inner office, which had the agreeable mustiness of a long-established legal firm. Vast numbers of dead boxes labeled Lady Hope, Sir Everard Carr, William Yatesby, Esquire, deceased, etc., gave the required atmosphere of decorous county families and legitimate long-established businesses. Studying Mr. Symington as he bent over the documents I had brought, it occurred to me that if Miss Symington had encountered disaster in her first marriage, she had certainly played safe in her second. Richard Symington was the acme of calm respectability, the sort of man who would never give his wife a moment's anxiety. A long neck with a pronounced Adam's apple, a slightly cadaverous face, and long thin nose. A kindly man, no doubt, a good husband and father, but not one to set the pulses madly racing. I'm going to stop there. My throat's getting sore again. Guys, sorry. See how much more we got. Oh, not much more, but I just can't. Man, I'm getting sleepy, as you might have guessed. Instead of my throat while ago, I about went to sleep. Y'all knew that. Alright, have a happy day. I'm not on live today, but if Miss Kelly's Crochet Adventures does her turbo Tuesday crafting, we go up on the panel and show her crafts and hang out. And I decided to go back and work on this because it should be a really quick knit with this big fat number 6 yarn. Yep, 6. The Eco Cozy summer bouquet. And I still have this much of a skein, and I already got this much done. That's the front. So if I stay with it, maybe I'll have another FO fairly soon. Soon and very soon we are going to see the King. I'm gonna wash this mop. Get on my face. Love y'all. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Bye.